When Muslims want to show that Islam is a peaceful religion, they often point to Surah 532. They normally quote only parts of it, and with the translation of Pickthall, this reads as follows: Whosoever killeth a human being, it shall be as if he had killed all mankind, and whoso saveth the life of one, it shall be as if he had saved the life of all mankind. I find this a beautiful verse, and well, from this verse one would think that Islam is one of the most peaceful religions on earth. There are some qualifiers in this verse, though, and normally they are left out. But first I want to talk about the origin of this quote. The verse starts, "For that cause we decreed for the children of Israel," and then the quote follows. So apparently Allah is quoting himself here. This ruling that he gives in this verse, he gave first to the Israelites. In fact, I'm not sure why the Muslims think that this ruling now is applied to them, because the verse says at no point that the Muslims have to follow this ruling. I guess the reason is that Allah does not say that this ruling is not valid anymore. And as far as I know, when the Koran or the Hadith don't contradict Jewish ruling, the Jewish ruling is still seen as valid. Okay, but now for the origin of this verse. There's indeed a Jewish text that contains a passage that is very similar to the surah. Surprisingly, this Jewish text is not part of the Bible. It is not considered to be of divine origin. It's a legal commentary to the rulings of the Jewish Bible. The book is Mishna Sanhedrin, and this passage is to find in chapter 4. The passage starts, "So do we find in the case of Cain, who slew his brother." The story of Cain and Abel is told in the surah before the passage also. It reads, Genesis chapter 4:10, "The voice of the bloods of thy brother are crying unto me from the ground." And now the interpretation of this quote from Genesis follows. It does not read blood, but bloods, which means his blood and the blood of his descendants. Therefore the man was created singly, to teach that he who destroys one soul of a human being, the Scripture considers him as if he should destroy a whole world, and him who saves one soul of Israel, the Scripture considers him as if he should save a whole world. You see, the context is the same, the story of Cain and Abel. The structure of the sentences is the same. The wording is slightly different. The Quran says mankind, while the Sanhedrin says the whole world. These differences in wording might result from the fact that Muhammad was illiterate, and so he had to quote from his mind, and apparently he grasped the meaning. It may also be due to the fact that translations can be different. I also found a translation of the Sanhedrin that says the whole race, which is identical to mankind. Anyway, as I said before, the Quranic verse contains some qualifiers, and this is, I think I put it in the context. "For that cause we decreed for the children of Israel, that whosoever killeth a human being for other than manslaughter or corruption in the earth, it shall be as if he had killed all mankind." This is the Pickthall translation. The Yusuf Ali translation says, "Unless it be for murder or for spreading mischief in the land." Okay, so this verse obviously allows for killing somebody for murder, and it also allows to kill somebody for spreading mischief. The question is, of course, what is meant with mischief? I had some trouble to find it out. The Quran itself is not very clear about it. I looked for other quotes. Sometimes the Quran puts doing mischief in the land together with waging war. For example, in the next verse, 5:33. But this following verse also tells us about possible punishments for doing mischief. The punishment for those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive with might and main for mischief through the land is execution or crucifixion, or the cutting off of hands and feet from the opposite sides, or exile from the land. In his commentary on the Quran, Ibn Kathir clarifies what waging war means in this context. Wage war mentioned here means oppose and contradict, and it includes disbelief, blocking roads and spreading fear in the fairways. Mischief in the land refers to various types of evil. Ibn Kathir does not give us a clear definition of waging war or spreading mischief, but he makes clear that a broad range of actions are included here. So I had a look what Islamic websites would tell me about mischief or corruption, as Pickthall phrases it. The Arabic word that is used in the Quran for mischief or for corruption is fasad, and a glossary of Islamic terms that was compiled by Professor Ishaq Said tells us about fasad. Fasad, literally corruption in Quranic terminology, means creating disorder and corruption on earth by following a path other than God's. If we apply this definition to the Quranic verse, each non-Muslim is doing mischief. I continue with the definition in the glossary. Islam maintains that true peace and happiness emanate only through the observance of God's commands and through making a conscious effort to see His laws alone are implemented in every sphere of life. Fasad occurs when man violates God's laws and disobeys Him. Fasad may therefore be partial as well as total. Partial when one disregards God's law in one aspect of life while acknowledging His sovereignty in other spheres. If a society is based on the denial of God, that society is bound to be a corrupt and exploitative society, hence full of fasad. I found a second source, but the internet site has changed its structure, and so I don't know if it's still on the site. The internet site I found it on was ISNA, which is the North American Islamic Society, and the text I found is a sermon of the Friday's prayer. And the preacher defines fasad as follows. It means spoiling the order, disturbing the balance of justice by greed, self-interest, deception, and double talk. The Quran has used this word about 50 times. Al-Fasad could be in morals and values, in social systems, in family systems, in educational system, in economics, in politics, or in human relations in general. Al-Fasad appears when people follow their lusts and vain desires, when they try to twist the truth and distort the facts. Instead of following the truth and the guidance from their Lord and Creator, they ignore and turn away from His message. I do not claim that all Muslims do agree to these definitions of mischief. Actually, my experiences so far on YouTube show me that there are always deviant opinions regarding questions of faith in Islam. But it is obvious that if somebody defines mischief as not following the path of Allah, not obeying to His commands, that in this case the verse 532 of the Quran is not a peaceful verse. it's more of a threat.